6 Mexican inmates rose to their feet, bodies covered in tattoos, eyes blazing with fire. One lunged forward, his rough hand reaching out, trying to snatch the ring of keys from the female guard's belt. Whistles and cheers erupted, the entire cell block exploding in chaos. In that suffocating moment, no one knew if she would fall or turn the trap into a nightmare for them instead. Before we continue, drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts about this story. And if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit like and share so more people can see it. Most importantly, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. We post fresh content every day at the same time. A dramatic story. The heavy iron bell rang through the corridor of Block D. Each step of female guard Elena Ward struck sharply against the cold concrete floor, echoing beneath the prison's steel ceiling. And that morning, the atmosphere inside the prison was different, silent but suffocating, as though the entire block was holding its breath, waiting for a storm to come. Elena was one of the few female guards assigned directly to Block D, the section that housed dozens of notorious Mexican inmates. These were not ordinary criminals. Most of them were former cartel members, hardened men who carried their own codes, their own loyalties, and above all, an unshakable hatred for anyone in uniform. The iron door creaked open. Elena stepped inside. Immediately, dozens of eyes turned to her. Eyes of predators, eyes of enemies, eyes filled with challenge and resentment. Spanish whispers rippled through the air, rising quickly into mocking laughter, jeers, and shrill whistles that reverberated through the cramped space. Elena did not react. She kept her posture straight, her eyes cold as they swept across the room. After years working inside these walls, she was accustomed to hostile stares. But today, there was something different, something unusually quiet underneath the noise. Her instincts warned her. Something was about to happen. A group of inmates suddenly rose from their benches. 6 or 7 tattooed, muscular men moved deliberately into position, their steps heavy, their presence dark and threatening. Slowly, they formed a circle around her, closing in like a tightening steel net. They said nothing at first, only glared at her, their expressions as sharp as blades, as if wolves were surrounding prey. One man, tall and broad with a skull tattoo on his neck, stepped forward to block her path. His lips curled into a crooked smile, his gravelly voice echoing through the cell block. "Guard, you know what happens to those who dare to stand against us, don't you?" Mocking laughter erupted from the others. From behind the bars of nearby cells, inmates pressed forward, their hands rattling the metal, their voices rising in support, turning the block into a cauldron of chaos. Elena stood motionless. She tilted her head slightly, her cold eyes locked on the man who spoke, her silence more intimidating than any reply. Then, another figure emerged from behind, leaner, with slicked back hair and restless, darting eyes. He moved quickly, his steps light but eager, his breath heavy against the back of her neck. Suddenly, his rough hand shot forward, trying to grab Elena's wrist. The block exploded with cheers. "Vamos! Take it! Grab her keys!" Elena twisted her wrist, slipping free of his grasp, but he didn't stop. Like a snake, he lunged lower, his hand darting toward her belt, aiming directly at the ring of shining keys hanging from her hip. That was the moment every guard dreaded, the moment when keys could fall into the wrong hands, turning the entire prison into a powder keg. The inmates roared, chanting and whistling. They weren't just trying to intimidate her. They wanted to humiliate her, to strip away her authority, to make her a spectacle in front of the entire prison. But Elena did not flinch. Her eyes glinted, cold, sharp, merciless. She shifted her stance slightly, one hand sliding to the baton at her belt. Her body was a drawn bow, coiled tight, ready to strike in a single instant. The skull-tattooed leader roared with laughter, raising his hand as a signal. Two more inmates lunged forward, one reaching to pin her shoulders, the other circling to cut off her retreat. The force of their charge shoved her back, pressing her against the icy steel wall. The noise reached a frenzy. Prisoners behind the bars banged their fists on iron, the metallic clanging ringing like war drums, shaking the block with violent rhythm. The thin, slick-haired inmate's hands stretched closer, this time almost brushing the keys. Just seconds more, and everything could spiral beyond control. But Elena was not someone who broke under pressure. Her right hand snapped down, baton flashing into her grip. With a swift, brutal swing, crack, the baton slammed against his wrist. The sound of impact echoed through the block. The inmate screamed, his hand recoiling in agony as he stumbled back. The room went silent for half a heartbeat. Then came an uproar, angry curses, shouts, and the pounding of fists against bars. The skull-tattooed leader bellowed, charging straight at her. His arms swung like sledgehammers, reaching for her throat. But Elena was ready. With a sharp pivot of her hips, she dropped low, baton sweeping across his stomach. The strike landed hard, folding him in half, forcing the air from his lungs. He gagged, blood spilling from his mouth. Two more rushed in. One seized her shoulder, trying to force her down. The other reached again for her keys. Elena drove her elbow upward with surgical precision, smashing into the chin of the one gripping her. Crunch! His head snapped back, eyes wide with shock as he fell. Spinning instantly, she brought the baton down across the other's arm. The bone cracked audibly, his scream filling the block as he collapsed, clutching his shattered limb. In less than a minute, Elena had already dropped 3 men. But the circle wasn't broken. The noise only grew louder, the fury of the gang rising to fever pitch. And yet, there she stood, alone, surrounded, her chest heaving with steady breaths, eyes blazing like steel under the harsh prison lights. The balance of power was shifting, but not the way the gang had expected. The air in Block D thickened, heavy as iron. The Mexican gang's circle tightened, their shoulders brushing against each other, cutting off every path of escape. The mocking whistles and Spanish taunts rolled like waves, rising higher, echoing off the concrete walls, drowning the corridor in chaos. The thin, slick-haired inmate, emboldened by the crowd's roar, lunged again. His rough hand shot forward, fingers clawing for Elena's wrist. The block erupted in cheers. Vamos! Take it! Grab her keys! Elena twisted sharply, slipping free. A time, but he moved fast, ducking low, his hand darting once more toward her belt, toward the glinting ring of keys that meant control over every lock in Block D. If he succeeded, the balance of power would tip violently, and the prison would plunge into chaos. The gang howled with excitement, their voices blending into a single chant. They wanted her humiliated. They wanted her crushed, her authority broken in front of everyone. Elena's body moved before thought. She pivoted hard, baton flashing from her belt in one seamless motion. Crack! Steel slammed across his wrist. The sharp sound echoed through the room. He screamed, stumbling back, clutching his arm. For a heartbeat, silence. Then rage exploded from the others. The skull-tattooed leader bellowed like a bull, blood still smeared on his lips. He charged, his massive frame barreling forward, arms swinging like wrecking balls. His target, Elena's throat. She dropped her weight low, pivoting on her heel. Her baton cut through the air and struck across his midsection. The impact folded him in half. He gagged, blood spewing from his mouth as he staggered, clutching his stomach. But 2 others were already on her. One grabbed her shoulder, forcing her toward the wall. The other's hand shot for her belt again. Elena didn't hesitate. She drove her elbow up with brutal force. Crunch. Bone met bone. The inmate's head snapped back, his body collapsing to the floor. With a spin, she swung her baton down on the second attacker's arm. The sound of bone cracking cut through the chaos. He shrieked, crumpling to the ground, his arm twisted at a grotesque angle. 3 down. 0-1. The rest of the block froze for a split second. Then the fury returned, louder, harsher. The prisoners behind the bars pounded fists and metal cups against the iron bars, a deafening rhythm that turned the block into a gladiator arena. The skull-tattooed leader roared again, wiping blood from his lips. Humiliation burned in his eyes. He raised his hand. 3 more surged forward. One was built like a bear, massive arms stretching out, ready to pin Elena against the wall and crush her beneath his weight. Another wielded a metal food tray, its sharp edge flashing under the fluorescent lights like a blade. The third ducked low, agile and quick, aiming to sweep her legs and drag her down to the floor. All at once, they closed in. The giant reached her first, his arms locking onto her shoulders. Elena's knee shot upward, driving into his stomach. The impact reverberated like a drum beat. His eyes bulged, breath exploding from his lungs. Before he could recover, her baton smashed against the back of his neck. He collapsed, a heap of dead weight at her feet. The man with the tray swung it down with a furious cry. Clang! Steel struck steel as Elena blocked with her baton. Sparks flew, light flashing across her determined face. The force rattled her arms, but she twisted, sliding her baton along the tray, slamming it into his forearm. The tray clattered to the floor. He howled, clutching his arm. The agile one struck low, arms wrapping around her legs. For an instant, Elena tottered, nearly dragged down. The block erupted, prisoners shrieking with glee. But Elena stomped down, heel smashing into his foot. Crack! He howled, loosening his grip. Her knee snapped upward, catching him square in the face. Blood spurted from his nose as he rolled away, groaning. In less than a minute, 3 more were down. The noise in the block faltered. Prisoners who had been jeering moments ago fell into stunned silence. Eyes widened, disbelief spreading through the ranks. Elena stood in the center of the chaos, chest heaving but gaze steady, baton glinting under the harsh lights. Her presence filled the block, unbroken, unyielding. The skull-tattooed leader trembled with fury, his teeth grinding. He knew what this meant. If his gang fell here, in front of everyone, his reign inside Block D was finished. His voice thundered. "This isn't over! She dies here!" And with that, he signaled for the rest of the gang. The noise in Block D thundered like a storm. Prisoners pressed against the bars, eyes blazing with excitement. They could not believe a female guard had taken down 3 Mexican inmates in mere seconds. But the gang wasn't finished. To them, losing once meant losing everything. Their dominance, their respect, their fear. The skull-tattooed leader roared in fury, wiping blood from his mouth. He raised his hand, signaling for more. Instantly, 3 others charged forward. One was massive, built like a bear, his arms spreading wide, intent on pinning Elena to the wall and locking her down. The second wielded a metal food tray, held high like a makeshift blade, its edge flashing dangerously under the fluorescent lights. The third crouched low, nimble and quick, aiming for her legs, clearly set on dragging her down onto the concrete floor. In that moment, Elena was nearly cornered. 3 men lunged together, their shadows merging, a tidal wave of violence crashing down on her. The giant reached her first, his arms slamming onto her shoulders. Elena dropped her weight and twisted. With explosive precision, her knee shot upward, burying itself in his stomach. Hmm. His breath exploded out, eyes bulging wide. Before he could recover, her baton cracked against the back of his neck. His massive frame buckled, collapsing to the floor like a felled tree. The man with the tray was next. He screamed and swung it down. Clang! Steel struck steel as Elena blocked with her baton. Sparks burst out, scattering light across the room. The blow rattled her arms, but she twisted her wrist, sliding her baton up along the tray's edge, and slammed it into his forearm. Crack! The tray flew from his grip, clattering across the floor. He staggered back, clutching his arm in agony. The smaller, agile inmate seized the moment. He shot forward from below, wrapping his arms around her legs. Elena wavered, her balance slipping. For a split second, the block erupted. Cheers, laughter, screams. They thought she was going down. But Elena's heel slammed down hard. Crunch! The inmate screamed as bones broke under her boot. In the same motion, she swung her knee upward, smashing into his nose. Blood sprayed across the concrete as he rolled back, moaning. In the span of a breath, 3 more attackers lay defeated at her feet. The roar of the crowd faltered, replaced by gasps and stunned silence. Inmates who had jeered seconds ago now stood frozen, their hands slipping from the bars. Elena stood tall in the center of the chaos, chest rising and falling, baton gleaming under the harsh light. Her eyes remained steady, cutting through the silence like shards of ice. The skull-tattooed leader's rage burned hotter. His pride, his status, his entire reign was on the line. He knew if his gang lost here, in front of the entire block, he would never recover. His teeth ground together, his voice booming across the cell block. You bitch! This time, you won't walk away. He lifted his hand again. The rest of the gang braced themselves, snarling like predators. The next assault would be their most brutal yet. The entire block shook with noise. The skull-tattooed leader threw his hand into the air, signaling his men. With a collective roar, the rest of the gang surged forward. 5, 6 men lunged at once, their shouts echoing like the charge of wild beasts. Elena knew this was the final assault, so if she fell here, not only her authority but her very life would be lost. The first attacker swung in with a jagged piece of sharpened metal, aiming for her shoulder. Elena twisted aside, her baton flashing upward. Clang! Steel struck steel, the weapon spinning away across the floor. Before the man could recover, she smashed her baton across his jaw. Blood sprayed as he crumpled to the ground. 2 others rushed from either side. One locked onto her arm, the other raised a fist to smash into her face. Elena dropped low, pivoted, and drove her elbow upward. Crunch! The punch missed, and her elbow tore into the ribs of the man holding her. He collapsed, gasping. The second swung again, but she blocked and countered, cracking her baton against his temple. Both fell, sprawling. But behind her, 2 more struck. A heavy chain whipped around her neck, tightening, choking off her air. The crowd roared, convinced it was over. The leader himself approached slowly, his fists clenched, ready to deliver the killing blow. Elena staggered, her breath strangled, the chain biting deep. But her eyes stayed steady, cold as ever. She stomped her heel down with brutal force. Crack! The man behind her screamed, his foot broken, his grip loosening. Elena seized the chain, yanked him forward, and slammed him onto the concrete. The leader was on her. His fists swung like sledgehammers. She slipped aside, baton arcing upward. Thud! It smashed into his chin. His head snapped back, body rocking. Still, he didn't fall. Blood poured from his lips, fury burning in his eyes. With a roar, he lunged again, both hands reaching to crush her throat. Elena's knee shot up, slamming into his gut. His massive frame folded, knees buckling. In that instant, her baton came down hard across the back of his neck. Wham! The impact echoed like a gunshot. His body collapsed, sprawling across the floor, unmoving. And just like that, it was over. The cell block fell silent. All around, the gang lay scattered and broken, groaning, bleeding, defeated. The prisoners who had once cheered now stood motionless, eyes wide with shock. The metallic stench of blood hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Elena stood at the center, chest heaving, baton still in hand. Slowly, she straightened, scanning the room. Not a single inmate dared meet her gaze. She walked forward, past the crumpled body of the leader. For a moment, she paused, her voice low, cold, final. You thought power came from fear, but today, fear belongs to you. The words rang out, sharp as steel. Silence pressed down, absolute. In that moment, Elena Ward was no longer just a guard. She was the law, the authority, the living embodiment of justice inside those walls. Block D sank into heavy silence. The only sounds were the ragged breaths of the Mexican inmates sprawled across the concrete floor, groaning, bleeding, broken. Against that backdrop came the slow, steady rhythm of Elena's boots, echoing like drum beats. Each step was a declaration, hammering into the minds of every man who watched from behind the bars. Just minutes earlier, the Mexican gang had been laughing, jeering, convinced they would destroy her. Now, they lay scattered, defeated, their pride shattered. From above, the scene looked like a battlefield, and Elena Ward stood at its center, not as a victim, but as the lone victor. One prisoner whispered, his voice trembling, eyes wide in disbelief. Santa Madre, she took down the whole Mexican gang. The words spread like fire through dry grass. Her inmates passed them cell to cell, until the entire block buzzed with hushed awe. The whistles, the mocking chants, the pounding metal had all vanished. What remained was a silence so deep it carried fear. Elena stopped in the middle of the block. The harsh fluorescent light carved her shadow long across the floor. She lifted her eyes, sweeping the room. Everywhere she looked, men lowered their heads, unable to meet her gaze. For the first time, Block D bowed not to fear of gangs, but to the authority of one woman. Her voice cut through the silence, calm but carrying to every corner. You wanted to break me. You wanted to make me a joke in front of this prison. But look now, who's lying on the floor? Her words fell like blades. Each syllable struck, leaving no space for denial. Elena walked toward the skull-tattooed leader, who lay unconscious, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. She crouched beside him, leaning close enough that, if he heard anything in his half-conscious state, it would haunt him forever. You wanted to rule this place with violence. But justice bows to no gang. She straightened. Two guards, who had been shoved aside earlier in the chaos, finally rushed to her side. Their faces showed shock and disbelief, but also awe. One whispered, his voice hoarse, Officer Ward, you just saved the entire block. Elena gave no reply. She simply nodded once, her eyes fixed on the fallen men. This was not victory to celebrate. It was duty fulfilled. A reminder of why she wore the uniform. The iron doors creaked open. The sound echoed through Block D, long and final, like a bell signaling the end of battle. Elena walked out, leaving behind the wreckage of a gang and the silence of a prison that had just witnessed the impossible. In the corridor, word spread fast. Guards gathered, eyes wide, voices filled with disbelief. One woman against all of them? And she won? Elena didn't slow. She adjusted her gloves, eyes set forward. Praise meant nothing to her. What mattered was this: justice had prevailed. That night, stories traveled beyond Block D. From one cell to the next, across the mess hall, into the solitary wing, everyone repeated the same phrase: the woman who crushed the Mexican gang. It grew into legend, not just for the strength it took, but for what it proved. Even the fiercest, most violent men could be brought low by discipline and unyielding will. In a place where violence was currency, Elena Ward had changed the rules. She had shown that fear was not power, control was, and she owned it. The final image: Elena's face, caught under the fluorescent glow. Her eyes cold, sharp, yet burning with conviction. The shadows of bars and walls framed her, but she stood apart, unmistakable, unbreakable. And the narration closed the story. That day, the Mexican gang learned a truth: that sometimes the most dangerous person in prison isn't a gang leader or a killer, but a woman who carries justice in her stride.